Welcome to Pediatrics. Unexpected complications at the end of a normal pregnancy. You were on regular follow up, you had normal scans, and just prior to delivery, or during labor, or immediately post delivery, you are being told that the baby is having a problem. It's a total shocking news for anyone expecting a normal baby at the end of a uneventful pregnancy. Usually, these problems are expected in large babies, short mothers, when there is a baby who is larger than the birth canal of the mother, when there is a prolonged labor, there's time taken for the baby to descend is longer than expected. When there's an abnormal presentation, usually we know that the head of the baby comes out first. When the buttocks comes out first, is also quite common. Probably the one which is common after the normal cephalic presentation. But there can be suddenly you see the hand of the baby coming out. There can be a problem with the shoulder being delivered, the umbilical cord coming out first. So all these can cause issues in babies immediately post delivery. So the commonest problem encountered after delivery is the birth injury. Birth injuries can range from minor abrasions, minor bruises, to incision wounds. When emergency CS, when the incision is put on the uterus, there can be small wounds on the baby's presenting part. That is very common, not very common, but that is one of the most common birth injuries. Babies can have cephalhematoma, which is bleeding into the layers of the scalp. Then caput succedaneum, that is one of the commonest things which is seen in a normal delivery, that is a swelling or edema of the scalp. That usually cephalhematoma and caput succedaneum doesn't cause much of a problem. It usually disappears quite fast in a matter of few days to weeks. In normal delivery, again, you may see subconjunctival hemorrhage, bleeding into the white part of the eyes, the sclera. That also disappears by itself. You don't have to do anything. Clavicle fracture of this long bone, which is horizontal, is quite common, especially in difficult labor. It's a rudimentary bone. The fracture as such doesn't cause much of a problem. You just have to leave it alone, and the healing of that fracture may cause a little bit of swelling over that area, a bony swelling over that area. But other than that, doesn't cause any issue to the baby. But clavicle fracture is one of the commonest problem in a difficult birth. And another scenario is when the baby is being given very vigorous massage during birth. That also is one of the causes for clavicle fracture. Then you have got nerve supply to this hand. So when it is a normal delivery, it was very difficult to take out the baby. The neck or head was stretched too much. This can cause injury to the nerve supply of the hand. And there can be something called as Erb's palsy, Klumpke's paralysis. So most of the time it was not a very grievous injury. After some time, the baby usually recovers. If it's very gross injury, the nerve has got cut, then you may have to go for surgery. And a similar one is the paralysis of the facial nerve. Again, when there is hyperextension of the head and shoulder, neck, those things can cause nerve injuries during the time of labor. One of the other complications at the time of birth is the hypoxia of the baby. Like 90% of the babies cry at the time of birth. They do it by themselves, and the transition is very smooth. Around 10% of babies may require some stimulation. Earlier days, we used to slap the baby, put the baby upside down and shake the baby. All these can cause injury. So those interventions are not recommended nowadays, but we rub the baby gently and try to make them cry. So 10% may require some stimulation. Around or probably less than 1% of babies require aggressive management, artificial respiration and things like that. So if this doesn't happen at the right time is 1 minute, within 1 minute at the time of delivery. It's called the golden minute. This is the most important minute in the life of a baby. If that doesn't happen, if the oxygenation doesn't happen in a proper way at that point of time, it can damage the brain of the baby, hypoxic injury of the brain. So in a hospital setup, this issue is expected, or the hospital is prepared to face this situation in every delivery. So there will be someone who is attending the delivery who is prepared to start off the resuscitation process on the baby. So in severe cases, the baby may require resuscitation and may require ventilation later. Another thing is this hypoxia can occur during the time of delivery or prior to delivery, and all the treatment comes after it. So a normal scan earlier doesn't mean that this complication doesn't occur at the time of delivery or just prior to it. So if this hypoxic issues are anticipated, the baby is not expected to cry. Some cases give us clue early, some of them don't. So if you feel or this is expected, definitely the hospital will be prepared. But even in other cases, if there is a proper setup in the hospital, they will be definitely anticipating this in every delivery, and they'll be prepared to face it if the baby doesn't cry at the time of birth. Another problem is meconium aspiration syndrome. The baby passes meconium when the baby is within the uterus, and most of the time it's one of the indications for emergency cesarean or emergency delivery. What happens is this meconium gets mixed in the amniotic fluid in which the baby is lying, and the baby's reflexes are not very good. So the baby may swallow this meconium, which is not a problem because it goes to the stomach and may cause a little bit of gastritis, that's all. But it get aspirated into the lungs. That can cause a problem to the lungs. It can cause lung injury, difficulty in oxygenation, and these babies will require resuscitation and in severe cases may require ventilator. One of the benign problems the babies face is transient tachypnea of newborn. In this scenario, what happens is the baby had a normal pregnancy. The pregnancy was normal. The baby had a normal course. At the time of delivery, baby probably cried. The baby is taken for observation, and then you are being told that the baby is having a little bit of breathing difficulty and the baby has to stay back. It is taken by surprise. Why? The baby was absolutely normal, the delivery was normal, then why a problem at the time of birth? This problem is usually seen in borderline term babies, post-cesarean and infant of diabetic mothers. So this happens because of delayed clearance of fluid in the lungs. You know that when the baby is inside the uterus, the lungs is full of fluid, and once the baby is out and the baby starts crying, this fluid is replaced by air. So there is a delay in clearance of fluid in some babies and in filling of air in the lungs. That's what causes a little bit of respiratory problems in these babies. But as the name suggests, it's a transient problem. It's tachypnea. Tachypnea basically means fast breathing. So it's a temporary issue of fast breathing in newborns. And most of the time you don't have to do any investigation to find out what the cause is, because if the clinical scenario is well setting in, then you may wait. But if the recovery is taking too much of time, then we investigate to see whether there is any secondary cause for this. Sometimes these babies may require a little bit of oxygen support, and very, very, very rarely ventilatory support. The main problem in TTNB is the feeding may get delayed. Usually we try to directly put the baby on the breast within 1 hour of delivery. If there is a fast breathing issue in the baby, the direct breastfeeding may get delayed a little bit. Anomalies in babies, structural problems seen in babies. Most of the time these can be picked up in antenatal scans, but the timing of scan is very important. Anomaly scan is usually done at 20 weeks. Even if you had a normal scan earlier than that, doesn't mean that the baby doesn't have any anomaly, because the organogenesis, everything is clean, and that is the time, around 20 weeks is the time you can clearly see them in the ultrasound scans. And one thing which has to be kept in mind is it's like taking a photograph with much lesser quality. Like it's like seeing an X-ray. So you can see the structure of the baby, whether there are 5 fingers, whether the eyes are present, ears are present, but you cannot make out whether it's working or not. Like seeing a photograph, you see a photograph, you see both the ears, but you don't know whether the person can hear. Similarly, in ultrasound, you can see only the anatomical issues or anatomical features of the person can be seen, but the physiological thing, the function of the organ cannot be ensured using ultrasound. And even in structural things, minor defects may be missed. But most of the time, genetic defects, intracranial defects, cardiac defects, problems with the lungs, structural problems with the lungs, structural problems with the kidneys, all these are picked up. Cleft lip, cleft palate, that is another issue which Very minor defects may be missed, especially isolated cleft palate and intestinal obstruction, problems with the connection of liver and intestine, earlobe anomalies. All these are usually picked up, but if it is very minor defects, you may not be able to pick up. And the timing of this particular scan to detect all these is very important, because if the baby is too small, these may not be evident. If the baby is too big, when you put the scanning probe, you will be seeing only parts, small parts of the babies. You may not be able to see the ear completely. So all these things give an increased risk of missing these anomalies. So the timing of anomaly scan, which is around 20 weeks, is very important. So now coming to the defect of cleft lip and cleft palate. What to do if it is detected? Usually the first 3 months the baby requires a little bit of assistance, because the baby may not be able to suck and swallow properly, so you may have to introduce feeds directly a little more deeper into the mouth. Hearing tests are done to see whether there is any associated hearing problems, and then you see whether the growth of the baby is normal. From 3 to 6 months, usually you get the lip repaired, and then from 6 to 12 months you get the cleft palate, the roof of the mouth repaired, and 1 to 5 years you get the speech corrected. So that's a thing which is a continuous process, regular follow-up, and see whether the speech is getting corrected and getting going with the peer group. 8 to 12 years you may have to do bone grafting of the gum if there is a defect of the gum, and by 12 to 15 years you get the teeth alignment corrected. Another thing is the passage of urine and meconium post-delivery. Urine should be passed within 48 hours of life. If there is an anatomical defect in the tract, usually it is detected early, because if there is an obstruction for the urine output, the amniotic fluid of the baby will be very minimal. So that will give a clue that there is a kidney issue. The bladder may be over distended. So all these things are clues towards an abnormal urinary tract. So urine should be passed within 48 hours. Meconium, the motion of the baby, should be passed within 24 hours of life. So if there is an anatomical defect, anorectal malformation is usually detected in antenatal scans. Sometimes what happens is the anatomy is completely okay, but the intestine nerve supply has a problem. So it's called Hirschsprung's disease. So in that case, what happens is the structure is there, but gradually, because of lack of nerve supply, because lack of movement of the intestine, this gets impacted there, and it can cause issues. Another thing is hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism is something which cannot be detected in the scans. So all the babies are checked for thyroid values of hormone values. TSH and T4 are usually checked at the time of birth to detect, and if any, correct it immediately. But if it is not detected, if it is missed at birth, that can present as delayed passage of meconium and constipation. So whenever there is a complaint, usually thyroid levels are rechecked. Another issue which is not a birth defect, but which is seen in the first month or towards the end of second month, second months, is called idiopathic hypertrophic pyloric stenosis. That is, the baby is absolutely normal, the baby is feeding properly, then all of a sudden the baby starts vomiting. Whatever the baby takes, the baby vomits. Happily feeds, immediately vomits, and the baby goes into dehydration and develops weight loss. It's totally different from the little bit of regurgitation of feeds which is happening. This is continuous vomiting. This is because at the end of the stomach, the connection between stomach and intestine, there is a space, and that space gets thickened. What happens is the stomach receives the milk when the baby feeds, and immediately after that, because of contraction of the area after that, the milk is not able to go down, so it comes back. So idiopathic pyloric stenosis is a defect seen in some babies within first 2 months of life. It's not a birth defect. That is one thing which comes as a surprise, and surgery is the treatment for the same. Another problem is hernia. Hernia is very common in preterm babies, and it is not very rare in term babies as well. One of the commonest hernias is umbilical hernia. The umbilicus protrudes, and there is a misconception that it is because of water entering the umbilicus. No, it is basically because of weakening of muscles in and around that particular area. But most of the time it resolves by itself. By 9 months it starts shrinking. By 1 year most of them disappear. Even if it doesn't disappear at that point, you can wait till 5 years, and very rarely do you need surgeries to get umbilical hernia corrected. But inguinal hernia, swelling in the groin region or into the scrotum of male babies, is probably inguinal hernia. And around 3% of term babies and 30% of preterm babies in certain population. That is a little more serious than umbilical hernia, because what can happen is the defect is very small. So the intestine comes out through that defect and then it doesn't go back. Most of the time when you press that swelling, it disappears, and then when the baby cries again, the swelling increases. The same thing happens with umbilical hernia as well. But umbilical hernia, the defect is quite big, so it doesn't cause much of a problem. But in inguinal hernia, the defect is small, so it comes out sometimes at one point, it gets trapped. It's called incarcerated hernia. It's a trapped hernia. That can cause redness, swelling, pain in that particular area. It's a emergency. Strangulated hernia, along with this issue, the blood supply to the intestine is also cut. The more severe symptoms, the patient may have fever, vomiting, blood in the stools. So most of the time, if you see a hernia, elective case, that is not in an emergency situation, we can wait, but by 1 year of age, the hernia should be corrected. In a complicated case, we don't wait that long, it's done as an emergency. Another one is cryptorchidism, missing testis. Sometimes one side, sometimes both sides. So initially what we do is we try to locate the missing testis. So just by palpation you may be able to see the testis during development of the baby. It is formed inside the tummy and then it descends down. Sometimes it gets arrested on the way. That's how it gets, it goes missing from the scrotum. So first you try to locate by palpation. Sometimes you may have to do an ultrasound and see. And at around 6 to 12 months, you do a surgery to correct it. So if it is a normal functioning, normal sized scrotum inside the abdomen, you pull it down, bring it to the scrotum and fix it there. It's called orchiopexy. And if it is too small and not working, then they are removed, because if it is kept there, there is a increased chance of injury and infection and things like that. Another issue which comes as a surprise is hydrocele. Hydrocele is basically a fluid-filled sac in the groin or scrotum of babies. And again, around 1 year of age, it is corrected by surgical methods. Unless it is complicated. If it's complicated, we may go in for a corrective surgery earlier than that. So hope this gives you an idea as to why certain defects are not detected during pregnancy, or why certain complications appear during delivery or post-delivery. So these are quite rare entities, doesn't happen to all the babies, but this will help to anticipate or grasp the problem when a doctor talks to you after delivery. Happy parenting.